Alright guys, TacticalRab again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. The new map has arrived here into Modern Warfare 2. The pros gave it a whirl last night and they believe it is certainly viable, at least for control. Fortress is dead and buried in the mud, hopefully, and maybe Hardpoint and Search and Destroy might see some changes as well. Someone Hydro gone for this new Expo map. Which teams does it help? Which teams does it hurt? Very much intrigued to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you are new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you all for 95,000 subs as well. Got to that milestone just a few days ago. We've been killing it lately. The entire COD sea's on fire. Shotzzy just rocketed through 100k subs a few weeks ago and is now pushing like 120, 130, I think, because his rank play constant has been out of control. But yeah, thank you all so much. We're 5k away from 100k. That's going to be a big one. So if you guys haven't yet subscribed, I would really appreciate if you considered it, because even if like 50% of those of you watching right now that aren't yet subscribe today, we'd hit 100k like in a few hours. So anyway, really appreciate it, and let's keep on trucking, baby. So last night they made some updates to the game. Parasite mentions that there's now a reduced ADS penalty on the underbarrels, which he reckons the ARs and SMGs he used as shark fin should now be worth using the Commando instead. Next is external edge. I don't know if any of this is legit, but Parasite probably has good advice, so give it a go and see if you think that this actually makes a fair bit of sense, because quite a few small tweaks with yesterday's update. I think there were some changes to the Lackman sub, among others. Nothing major for the current competitive setup, even though the rotation do say that Flash and Sun Grenade Blast are no longer meant to kill players at low health. So this would happen from time to time. Apparently that's not meant to happen any longer. And also they have supposedly addressed the footstep volume. Now, we know that footsteps are largely too high, and even if footsteps are reduced, the sound equalization is still going to be a problem. We'll discuss that later today, but maybe some small changes. No red dots, of course, yet, unfortunately. And also there was something noticed with the tactical sprint where it would just run out and it would take a whole minute to reset. So, and seemingly this was unintended. I know that Charlie Intel and other sources were saying, well, this wasn't mentioned in the patch notes, but was clearly noticeable in gameplay yesterday, and they say that it's unintentional. So, a classic Infinity Ward thing where they do an update and, some unintended consequences result, and therefore they have to resolve it. It's like, do they playtest their game before these patches arrive? I don't know. But it's been a thing with developers for years. It must be harder than I appreciate, but nonetheless, I don't understand how these type of things slip through the net. So here's the new map. This is a runaround of it, actually, because Shotzzy certainly might have a field day on this one with all the jump spots you can do. And as I said when we looked through kind of a walkthrough yesterday of the map, it definitely looks like and gives good vibes, right? Just the way it looks, the way it feels. There's elements of this map that remind me of many different maps from COD history. They've definitely taken some inspiration from around some good maps in COD history. Even that kind of roundabout thing towards the back there that you can't fully go around is almost raid-esque in a way. So look, the pros gave it a go last night. It looks like a good COD map. It seems to play like a good COD map as well. Yes, it's pretty big, but it's not absolutely immense compared to some of the other maps that we have successfully played on in COD history. Even in this game, LSELO's big, and that's still viable for certain game modes. Whether this Expo map is going to work for all three game modes seems possibly doubtful, but it's at least worth a go, and the pros decided to play it last night to give it a go and see how it would fare. Now, before we talk about the control points, I just wanted to mention real quick on this new Expo map, of course, what's going on with Fortress. So this is Fortress Control, or this is just straight up Fortress, played currently in all three game modes, right? We play it in Search, we play it in Hardpoint, we play it unfortunately in Control. And I don't know if you guys remember, but there was meant to be a time where we were going to have a map editor arrive into the game. And I don't know if that's still going to be a thing or not. And in fairness, right, even if there was a map editor, it wouldn't allow you to like add new lanes. I think the idea was it would allow you to move around some of the boxes. Maybe this truck here, you could move it around or get rid of it or spin it around in a certain direction, or maybe add some new spawn points and change a few things around, get rid of a door here, get rid of a door there, stuff like that. And the community would be able to get involved in making changes like that. Now, could they add a new lane? Probably not. That's not what the map editor would potentially allow. But it seems so obvious, right, that, because there's a doorway over here. This right-hand side of the map here, there's a doorway here that is obviously closed and there's no access to it. It would make so much sense. I don't know why they didn't really do this, to have that doorway lead around this side. If there was another lane that connected this part of the map to this part of the map, which seems sensible to do anyway, it would probably make the map a lot better. Okay, maybe it might mess things around in Respawn and Surge, but it would certainly make Control better, because right now on the defense, you are confined into these two choke points, really. There's this choke point, there's this choke point, and there's this doorway, which you're never getting through in a million years if there's a guy over top here. But if there was an additional lane you could get through, it would allow offense to actually break out of the trap, which basically never happens. So, it seems like an obvious change, but I guess they decided to never make it when they were playtesting this map, and unfortunately, it's terrible for Control. Therefore, we want a replacement for it. The pros, I mean, it's been very frustrating watching Fortress, playing Fortress for some time, but for some reason, teams like OpTic played it again and again and again at the major before they finally decided to go elsewhere and actually had more success doing so. So this is the overview of the new map here, with the B control point over here, the A control point here, and the pros decided, you know what, let's give it a go last night, test it out, and it worked very well. I wanted to say also from Dirty Joke, I thought was kind of funny, he came up with his idea of how to fix Fortress, and his idea is to have a trap door in the bottom of this building and create a dungeon that you can go through this dungeon, wrap under the middle of the map and come up in bottom here, which would be fantastic, right? I mean, look, it's another potential solution, almost like if you guys played Hijacked in Black Ops 2, it was basically, the layout was like Nuketown, but there was an underground tunnel which allowed you to get out of certain spawn traps, and, you know, it was a viable option, and maybe that's the way to go here, and you can have a dungeon that looks like, you know, something like this. I thought it was a pretty funny idea to, okay, obviously Infinity War aren't going to do this, and there was potential, you know, interesting things going on in this dungeon, but nonetheless, I thought that was worth mentioning as a possible solution to the issue, but we're not going to have to worry about that because it's going to be gone, and Expo's going to come in. The only thing I'm concerned about with Expo is if they've somehow copied this word for word, bar for bar from a real-life location, and again, they're going to get into copyright issues because the map almost looks too good to be true in some sense. This one Infinity War are capable of. We know that with Hotel, they copied it from a real-life hotel. I think the Conservatorium Hotel or something in Amsterdam, it's just straight up copied and pasted. Obviously, Crown Raceway in the game is just the Singapore Grand Prix pit lane. And then, of course, that museum map, they just also ripped that, and therefore, they're not allowed to play Crown Raceway or Museum in the CDL. They somehow got around it with Hotel, which is thankful because, I mean, like, we need that map in the map pool, let's just say. So hopefully they haven't just copied this map from a real-life location, because if they have, we might be chalked. But still, this is what it looks like. So this is the map overview. These are the 5 hardpoint locations, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are the 2 team spawn points. Looks pretty good, looks pretty viable. The fact that they've put 5 hardpoints as well gives me faith that they know what they're doing with this map design anyway. The search kind of locations are pretty interesting, right? Given the fact that A is so far away. Okay, it makes sense, right? Usually you've got one bomb site closer, one bomb site further away, but B is going to be the kind of 50-50 site, it seems here, and then A is going to be a little bit more challenging to get to. I think it could work for search, though, based on some things I saw, but I'm not guaranteed that's going to be the case. And this is Control, and it seems to me, just because it's a more traditional-looking Call of Duty map, there's kind of 3 lanes. You've got the building lane, you've got here, you've got here. It kind of makes more sense than some of the other maps that we have in the game, and the pros decided to play it last night and gave their reaction. Pretty funny, right? Because JoeDeceives was actually getting into these matches, and Methods decided to pick him on his team. Didn't go so well from game 1. Okay, I think Ben turned the stream off because he didn't want to get roasted, but like, no one's expecting Ben to be that good at cards. But we know that the pros like to roast Ben and stuff because Ben gives his thoughts on the game and the way it should be played and certain things. Okay, maybe he's not that good at the game in terms of, you know, mechanics and all this. It doesn't mean that Ben doesn't have good points, right? I think Ben does make good points at times on the way the game should be played, but you know, he doesn't have experience playing at a particularly high level. Anyway, Methods goes 35 and 25. They played some quick little 8 series right here, and I think Rambo was getting them organized as well with Crowder, and even Ben gives his thoughts as well and says one playthrough and Expo might be a good ad for S&D and Control. So not convinced maybe for hard points, but for Control, I think they're certainly in agreement that it's going to be coming in. So I'll share the thoughts here briefly of Crowder, where he says for Control, it's really good and significantly better, a complete no-brainer to bring into the current rotation over Fortress. So that is almost certainly going to be happening. I mean, of course, now is the perfect time to do it because there's a couple of week break before the Major 4 qualifiers begin again. So Fortress Control is going to go, Expo Control is going to come in, Search and Destroy maybe. If that was to be the case, what do you replace in the current search pool? Because some say Fortress should go, some say that you get rid of maybe you know, Mikado instead possibly, and then Hardpoint, the map pool currently he says isn't terrible, which is probably true. I know that Hydro though got a lot of flack at the start of this game. Is Expo better than Hydro? I don't know. I'd probably want to go for it, but you know, true to your thoughts.
After watching it briefly, a couple maps at a time, like a couple of game modes, I think it's really good for Control in the sense, like, I think it's 100% a no-brainer in Control. I think Search and Destroy is definitely worth a conversation. I definitely think it's worth a conversation and more testing. I like it for Hardpoint, but I don't think Hardpoint's that down bad. So again, that's a conversation, but I think you need to have two really good teams actually go at it in Hardpoint and see like what you can do.
So Crowder doubles down and says, yeah, new map is 1,000% better than Fortress Control, and I know that they tested out Farm 18, they tested out Mikado Control not that long ago, and I think the general perception was there that it was unclear whether they were better or worse than Fortress, but the pros seem unanimous really in their agreement that this map is better than Fortress, and we saw so many bad times on Fortress at the major that it seemed inevitable that it was going to go for something, and that thankfully the new map is actually viable for it, and that is probably what's going to happen as a result. The question to me is there anything else going to happen with the other game modes? Because Rambo says he played it through. I think we have a suitable replacement for Fortress Control and Fortress Search and Destroy. So Rambo reckons it's good for Search as well, and he wants Fortress to be gone. Now, some agree or some disagree, right, on whether Fortress should be the Search and Destroy to go. Also good for hardpoints, but not enough to take out current maps in my opinion. Strongly recommend pro teams give it a try and see how it plays at the highest level. So you think Mikado Search is better than Fortress, says Bance. An argument can be made on either side. I personally think there's more opportunity for variations on strategy on Mikado. Yes, it's really hard to defend the bang out, so right now people depend on that strategy, but Fortress is stale and heavily relies on mid-round timings to create openings, which is maybe true as well. I don't know what you guys think about this. To me, Mikado is slightly more interesting to watch, but Mikado seems also super cheesy the way that kind of B-bomb site works, and also the wall bang that can be done is kind of broken as well onto trying to kill the guy planting or defusing. So I don't know, I'm not exactly sure what I think in terms of which should be gone, but Rambo believes it is viable for Search, this new Expo map. It's just a decision as to which map should be removed, and that's where the questions come in. Like, thankfully we actually have a new map this year to bring in, as we didn't in Vanguard. We did have a couple, of course, we brought in throughout the entire Cold War cycle, but always the question is there. Teams are going to vote based on what they like and what they don't like. Teams that like Fortress Control are probably going to vote to keep it in, even if it's terrible, because that benefits them. The majority of teams are going to get it gone. I'm pretty convinced of that, and I guess they'll vote between the teams, maybe 9 out of 12. If they vote on something, it'll happen, but the issue is that for Search and Destroy, are enough teams going to agree as to which Search should be gone to make this happen, right? Because the teams have to agree, they're like, hey, we want Fortress Search to be gone, but if some teams actually like Fortress Search, for example, Vegas were 8-0 on it so far this year until they lost to Boston at the major, they might want to keep Fortress Search. They might be in favor of getting Mikado gone. Can they agree on that? Maybe not. So it's maybe slightly more likely that what actually changes is actually in the hardpoint, right? Because in hardpoint, it's quite clear, I think, that there's one hardpoint map that people don't like, which is probably Hydro. Now, some might disagree and say that other hardpoint maps are worse. Hydro is okay, and it does have its moments, but I generally do think that the amount of water on that map does make it pretty outrageous to play and to watch at times. I think there is a skill gap there for sure. The way Toronto were countering Shotzzy in the water was quite impressive. They would just ignore him, and they'd do pretty well against OpTic there in the grand finals. Slasher, though, doesn't like Hydro at all. He reckons if people aren't swimming 50% of the map, I'm already convinced it's better than Hydro. Let's get it in for all three. So he reckons get it in for Search, Control, and Hardpoint. And okay, Slasher kind of disagrees that he doesn't like it just because they're bad at it. He reckons it's just kind of a terrible map in general, which I don't necessarily disagree with, and hopefully Expo is better. But the question is, can enough teams agree? They will agree for it going in Control, I'm sure, and it coming in, but will teams like OpTic, for example, who are pretty good at Hydro, and other teams be willing to get rid of Hydro from the map pool just because they might be better at Expo, they might be worse at Expo, and you know, teams that have that as one of their better maps aren't going to vote for it out, even if it's for the better of the game. So I think there's going to have to be some practice done for the guys, and maybe teams that are really good at Hydro turn out that they're actually really good at Expo as well in scrims, and therefore they think, you know what, yeah, let's get it in, and the teams that are bad at Hydro might also agree to something like that. So very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. Just to mention that Rambo's done another video on his YouTube channel here, the game within a game, his Fortress hardpoint analysis. So, you know, it would be interesting to tell you if he did this and then immediately it was removed straight away from the pool. But very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.